the Russians had flown a nuclear-powered aircraft. They flew it 40 times. But this was in the 1960s, and they did it by simply not shielding the crew.
Khrushchev was so concerned by what he perceived to be American progress in building an atomic-powered bomber that he demanded one of his own. And the truth of the matter was that the Russians were playing catch-up. They built a fairly crude direct cycle engine, and with fairly basic shielding that not only irradiated the crew, but also passed all kinds of contaminated air into the environment as it flew.
The Russians chose the Bear as their test plane. It was powered by 2 conventional turboprop engines, but it also had 2 experimental direct cycle jet engines. These were powered by a reactor installed in the main fuselage. Some 40 nuclear-powered flights were conducted between 1961 and 1969, with test pilot E.A. Gurianov at the controls.
I actually have a letter from test pilot Gurianov. He writes, "We had all been irradiated, but we ignored it. Of the 2 crews, only 3 men survived, a young navigator, a military navigator, and me. The first to go, a young technician, took only 3 years to die."
The problem of shielding the crew from radiation in a nuclear-powered aircraft has never really been solved. But the underlying ideas behind the NB-36 project continue to influence American military research.
Whenever you spend money on high tech, there's always the possibility and usually the reality of some useful fallout.
In April 1961, the month after Kennedy cancelled the manned nuclear-powered bomber program, a contract was awarded to the Chance Vought Aircraft Company to build an atom-powered cruise missile. With no crew involved, it would not require heavy shielding. The new weapon was to be a direct-cycle nuclear ramjet.
Just as I was leaving the directorship at Livermore, we took on the responsibility for the reactor design for the nuclear cruise missile. The cruise missile is just a pilotless airplane. You got this direct drive engine. It's just like, it's you know, a lot of parallels between it and a nuclear airplane, except since it didn't have a pilot, the shielding problem was not the same.
The new missile was called SLAM.
Chance Vought got as far as building a 1/3 prototype of the SLAM. The final design for the SLAM would be a missile that was 65 foot long. It would be fired up to high altitude to get as far as it needed to go. It was indeed a missile that would have infinite range, being nuclear powered. But then it would drop down to 100 feet and be going at Mach 3, so this thing was absolutely unstoppable.
As well as releasing nuclear bombs, the Livermore scientists considered using the reactor itself as a lethal nuclear device which could irradiate enemy territory. It was the ultimate doomsday weapon.
You run it close to the ground, it fries everything. I mean, on top of it. So there, the radiation was an advantage rather than a disadvantage.
By 1964, SLAM was ready for flight testing. But politics was again to intervene. Kennedy and Khrushchev faced one another over Cuba, and the world came close to nuclear annihilation. In the aftermath, Kennedy and Khrushchev signed a nuclear test ban treaty.
I think the death knell of the nuclear-powered aircraft and the nuclear-powered missile came with John Kennedy. He was looking towards an accommodation with the Soviets. To have gone into that kind of nuclear technology would have been a provocation. And after the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, the general public knew how close they'd come to nuclear war.
The SLAM program was terminated in 1964, but the onboard guidance system developed for SLAM was later utilized in the conventional cruise missiles that are part of today's arsenal of US weapons.
In the end, the nuclear-powered aircraft was killed by simpler, cheaper technology. I mean, even in-flight refueling, which is routine these days, robbed it of the advantage of being able to fly forever. And the ballistic missile, which can hit a target on a postage stamp, or the cruise missile with its accuracy, that did away with the need for a big bomber.
But the dream of nuclear flight may not be over. In 2003, it was revealed that the United States Air Force Research Laboratory had funded 2 studies on nuclear-powered versions of the Northrop Grumman Global Hawk. The Global Hawk is an unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV. Its principal role is as a long-range, high-altitude reconnaissance platform. It is designed to fly from the United States to any hotspot on the Earth, and then circle for days at a time, sending data back to base. The plan now is to give the Global Hawk a flight endurance of several months. Has the technology that created the NB-36 at last come of age? Will the day come when nuclear-powered UAVs cruise the skies for months or years on end? This was the dream behind the original atomic bomber, the WS-125. One of the planes that never flew.
At the same time, next week, Planes That Never Flew focuses on America's first jet fighter. Next tonight, the battle for Manchuria in Battlefield.